Right. It is time for the nonprofits. And in this segment, we're going to discuss an article entitled Faith Leaders Say Taylor Swift's New Album Mocks Christianity. Kelly, I don't know if you've listened to the new album, but based on the article, is there any legitimacy to this claim?
Well, I haven't listened to it, but Shane Pruitt, who's a leading Christian evangelist from Rockwell, Texas, has called on all good Christians to make sure they are not listening to the teasing sounds of Satan wrapped up in the guise of Taylor Swift, just like I haven't been listening to. Now, Pruitt also travels with a Christian music festival, so he might have a conflict of interest there. But his statement has generated a large bit of debate on his Facebook page, where he is saying that Swift's lyrics are an actual insult to his Christian beliefs. Now, MovieGuide.com, a Christian media service led by Dr. Ted Baer, has also condemned the new album as mocking Christianity with lyrics that elevate Swift above God. I don't even know how that's possible. And is calling for all good Christian parents to keep it away from their precious children, lest they too be swayed by evil. Now, this story is by Laura McKeithen. It was published on BeliefNet on April 29th, 2024.
Whenever I hear a Christian criticizing the actions of others, I throw up in my mouth a little bit. But that's beside the point. I think that's a different topic. I just want to ask, are we seeing anything new here? Is this not par for the Christian course? You can't listen to this. You can't watch that. This is bad. This is good. What is going on here? I mean, is this part of the Christian control we're so used to, Kelly?
Oh, yeah, I think so. In fact, Jimmy, now that you mention it, I have this book here that is literally, it's like 2 years away from being 300 years old. And it's a Latin version of the Council of Trent, which is really boring. But in the back of it, it has the index of prohibited books. And this list was already started 100 years before this book was written. So, yeah, I would say that Christians have a long history of saying you can't do this or you can't read this, because maybe that kind of stuff just might make you think a little bit.
Yeah. I for one, think Taylor Swift is the kind of person that does make people think. But Jason, talking to you, I think that you have a little bit of an issue with Taylor Swift. And I want to dissect that. So, what's your beef with this whole thing?
Well, I mean, for one, the idea that Taylor Swift is promoting satanic values. I mean, I don't even know. I don't know. I'm part of the Satanic Temple, and that's a secular humanist organization. I know some of the people involved have come under a little bit of fire lately, but generally the people who are involved are good people who are pro-social progression and pro-pregnant people's right to choose, things like that. So I like to support those things. So if that's what Taylor Swift is promoting, that's great. But, I don't see anything evil about that. I mean, maybe in a Christian worldview, that's evil because that goes against, what people are telling us God's commands are about things like abortion and queer rights and the like. So maybe in the mind of the subjective opinion of their God, those things are evil. But if those things are evil, then I don't want to do anything good, at least in their God's opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a great point. For people like us, it's okay to sit here and say, well, doesn't sound so bad to me, right? I mean, do you guys have any opinions on how Taylor Swift's actions, right? Let's call them actions, but her lyrics, her, the things she stands for. I mean, why would that piss off somebody who pretends to have the moral high ground?
I guess there's a little bit of maybe immorality from their point of view, maybe in there, because she does talk about hooking up, and of course we don't want our teenage girls to hear that kind of stuff. I mean, we have to have this purity culture, so we have to keep that kind of stuff away from them and hide it away, right? Keep it in the closet where the kids can't see it. And Taylor Swift is throwing the closet door open and letting the kids see it, and that's probably the biggest problem that they're having with it, as far as I can see. That it's opened up this thing that maybe, oh wow, there's a whole sexual world out there that that's being kept away from us. So I think that's probably the biggest problem.
And Jason, before I get to you, I want to comment on that, because that's what I asked in the beginning. Like, why do we even care about this article? Like, is this anything new? I mean, Lil Nas X, right? Really, busts the door wide open when it comes to promoting maybe satanic views or things that stand in contrast to Christianity. We've got artists like Alessia Cara, who has great lyrics about staying away from these pious people who want to control society and things like that. But wasn't Ray Charles accused of doing the devil's work? I mean, Elvis must have been a satanic person, right? So I don't know what we're even looking at. I don't know. Jason, do you have anything you wanted to add to that mindset there?
Well, to kind of hit on what Kelly was saying and to maybe kind of build on it, I think the Christians, and especially, I mean, you got to think about it. Fundamentalism, it's a business.
Yeah.
Right. They're promoting, and they understand the power of mass media and then the sway that people have over the masses. Right. So many of the ancient philosophers talk about the masses, and that's a real thing. So somebody like Taylor Swift, who has as much, if not a bigger platform than Christianity at this point, kind of like the Beatles, we're bigger than Jesus. Mm-hmm. Taylor Swift at this point is becoming as big, if not bigger, if not more influential than Jesus. That is direct corporate competition. I mean, we're just seeing capitalism happen in real time. Taylor Swift is the competition of, I guess, the church right now. I don't know. I have a problem with that type of music, but I won't go off on it being an underground musician and a person who, has been promoting satanic ideals and imagery in my music for as long as I can remember. This doesn't shock me. I don't care. I really don't give a fuck. But at the same time, I like the fact that there's somebody out there with this much sway, making these people fucking squirm.
Well, do you have so Jason? Forgive me. I gotta comment on what our kind of our script going into the show talks about, because I think when I was kind of reading your talking points, you aren't really that appreciative of Taylor Swift as a whole, right? I mean, what is the issue that you have, I guess, for what she stands for, or maybe not what she stands for, but just what she represents?
I mean, I don't know, the fact that we even the fact, I mean, it's promoted. It's it's allowed. It's provided to people. Taylor Swift is a corporation. She's just not one individual. She's a whole business. It's a company. I mean, people are making billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. If you're able to make billions of dollars, you're hoarding fucking wealth. And people like that, and people who hoard that much money, $1,000 a ticket for a fucking floor show, and the fact that people pay it, it's a status symbol. Okay. All that's doing is causing a wealth gap, and it's making music, quote music, just it's bastardized and it's disgusting and it's allowed for.
So I was reading through that. Go ahead, Kelly. Go ahead.
I've been saying it's also creating this formula for pop music too, where we want to put all these elements into it. We want to use these chord progressions, and that's why a lot of our modern pop music just all sounds the same, because they're writing it to a formula. That's making the most money.
Yeah. So going into this tonight, right, I kind of thought to myself, well, man, I really disagree with that perspective, but I think, Jason, you've swayed me a little bit. However, there is a conflict of opinion here, because I see where you're getting at, but I also don't really think that Taylor Swift is the representation of maybe Apple that employs 300,000 people in China, right? Or Nike that has sweatshops or has had sweatshops, right? I mean, this is a person who also has broken free of the chains that she was raised in, and her lyrics reflect that, in my opinion, right? So a lot of her lyrics talk about women, right? The viewpoint of society has on women, right? And the way that
no wonder the Christians hate her.
Exactly. Right. So this guy in this article quotes these Taylor Swift lyrics, but I just flicked through a simple Google search and came up with all kinds of Taylor Swift lyrics where she's talking about breaking out of the chains that society and that the wise men have kept her in, the tower that she's been locked away in, and how that she was the thing that the men have been warning little girls about. I mean, this is running rampant. So at the same time, I say, well, yeah, all right. $1,000 a ticket, fucking asinine, right? Just asinine. At the same time, though, creating a platform where little girls see somebody who was raised a Christian and then turn around and say, not in so many words, but this is not the right lifestyle. I don't know. I kind of feel some comfort in that. Jason, what do you think?
I have difficulty finding comfort in that. I really do, because like, wasn't that the message of Frozen? Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've already kind of been through this. Also, if we look at what feminism has so far done, it really in our country helps middle to upper middle class white women. Are people who are already in the process of becoming privileged. I don't see how somebody like Taylor Swift's music, the fact that she is playing concerts at venues that employ people and pay them pennies on the dollar with no pensions. I mean, the existence of millionaires and billionaires alone promotes poverty. So I can't get on board with it. Now, if she were to take her money and like, I don't know, donate most of it and actually be altruistic. I don't know. I cannot get behind the accumulation of wealth.
Yeah.
I'm too much of a leftist and too much pro working class, because I see, and I know I used to work in production. We used to do stage setups and things like that. And I did rigging and all those things. The amount of money that people make on these concerts versus what people are getting paid. These people are getting paid under the table. These people have no benefits. These people get harmed on the job. They don't get taken care of. And I've seen this. This is what I did for a living. I managed a company for years. So I see how these workers are treated, and I don't see the benefit. Sure, there's some people in the limelight saying women need to be strong. That's great. Well, until I see that trickling down and affecting women of color, until I see that helping trans women, until I see that actually happening, until I see a wealth gap dissolving because of these people, all I see them as is just another corporation that's hoarding wealth and resources.
Yeah, okay. That is a fair and honest point. And I do want to say that she is known for significant philanthropy, but you're right. I mean, this is not like she's giving away a lot of wealth. And I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to sit here and kind of drag her down, but I get your point and it's valid. Mm-hmm. Kelly, you wanted to add something.
I was going to say, I think there's better representations for women too. Somebody like Katherine Johnson, who worked for NASA and did all the math to put spaceships in orbit and a man on the moon. I think that's a way better representation than a pop star, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
I fully agree.
Yeah. And I think that brings us back to the point, right? So say what you will about the way that this can be broken down and the different things it can represent. Obviously, the church, preachers, Christianity has a problem with this thing. And I think that was a great point. Good. This is challenging the authority of the church, and that is what we need more of. So Jason, I guess I want to go back to you because of your music background, but is this something that you see as becoming more prominent, or is this just more run-of-the-mill stuff, no significance?
Well, okay, so what I'm really excited about is that the things that, like, the bands that I play in and the scenes that I've been a part of for most of my adult and adolescent life have already been promoting these ideals. And have already stood by these ideals and faced derision. But if you check Spotify, #1 searches are metal and metal related. So, and a good amount of themes in metal are anti-establishment, pro-autonomy, Satanism, all of these themes that people are now freaking out in the mainstream. And things like promoting atheism, promoting humanism, promoting queer values, shit like that. So to see this bleeding over finally into the mainstream is nice. But at the same time, we saw a surge of this in the late 60s and early 70s. People like the Stones, like Zeppelin, like Sabbath. So there are rises and falls and ebb and flows of this. And I don't want to be such a fatalist and a pessimist that I don't want to be like, this is great. But at the same time, I'm tentative to say I actually care, because I feel like, much like in 1984, which is a wonderful read, we are allowed a little bit of dissension and we are allowed a little bit of distractions and a little bit of this. So that way the business as usual can go down. So until I see a change, and again, until I see some Peter Singer-esque changes in Taylor Swift's regime, then again, I'm not impressed. I'm more impressed by people like Phil Oakes, who would bail out on his concerts, go talk shit to Bob Dylan, and then go do a protest instead of getting paid to perform in front of thousands of people.
Kelly, how does this backlash against Taylor Swift's controversial lyrics, I guess, in a sense, when you consider the perspective of Christians, how does this compare to what maybe you grew up with or things that you've seen in your youth. And I don't mean to pick on you, but you know what? You're wise, you're experienced.
Great. Because when Jason was going through this little mini list of bands earlier, I was thinking of something that happened to me once. I think it was in 1980, 81. I was kind of a foolish young guy, and I was hitchhiking across the United States, and I was going through Paradise Valley, Montana, which is just north of Yellowstone. And the people I was with stopped at the Paradise Valley Chapel bookstore, which I guess was a pretty popular bookstore in the area. And it was all religious books. It was crazy. And there was one book that was all about what records you shouldn't let your children listen to. And now that caught my eye. I picked it up and I started looking at it. And there was all these things, the Animals, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. And I would think back at that book, and I think putting Taylor Swift into that book would probably be the coolest list she was ever on.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wow. She could only wish to be part of that.
Yeah.
Well, I am happy that, she survived Kanye West. That's all I'm
There
saying.
you go.
Out of the two of them, I like to see her, accumulating more wealth than he did. Although, we have the issues with the wealth gap, but I digress. I'm just trying to be funny. In any case, though, I think this is a really good discussion. This is something that we kind of need to take a look at. Do Christians have a legitimate beef with the way that pop culture is kind of changing? And I think
they always steal it.
Yeah. Okay.
They do. They steal it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, they do.
So that's one of my questions is, well, what is wrong with being anti-Christian? Honestly. So you have the Christians, the Christian populace, right? And I hate generalizing. It's not all Christians, but aren't they mostly anti-left? Aren't they mostly anti-Islam? I mean, they're anti whatever they want to be, but when you have your own opinion or something that differs from their tradition, well, then you're the bad guy, right? But then they turn around and conform to it. I have never known such hypocrisy, and I just wanted to see what you guys thought. Kelly, that was a great point. Do you care to expand on that?
Which point was that?
That
about
was
them stealing it?
That's right.
That's right. I mean, if you look at Christian rock music's getting popular, so we start doing Christian rock. And Seth Andrews did a great lecture on it where he actually shows album covers that look just like the rock album cover that was now turned into a Christian rock album cover. It's amazing, and it's not just music, but it's other things as well. You'll get Christian books that are written sort of like in a Harry Potter vein, but it's a young Christian boy who's doing all the miracles instead of magic, So yeah, they steal our culture completely.
Jason, do you see this happening, permeating the
Holy
metal
shit.
or underground world?
So this is dating myself. If I was a kid of the 80s and 90s, if anybody watching this remembers a record label called Tooth and Nail and Solid State Records, what they would do, you would get Christian bands, and then they would list the bands that they sounded like. So you had a band called No Innocent Victim, and they would rip off like early 2000s Agnostic Front. You would have Zayo, and they'd rip off like different metalcore bands. You had bands like Spitfire. They'd rip off Converge and Coalesce, and they would write all that down. Mortification, Tourniquet ripped off Testament. They even did their logo the same as Testament, but it said Tourniquet, which actually Tourniquet was a better, actually technically good metal band. Like technically, if you can get over the weirdo lyrics, bands like Extol. I mean, and what's really interesting is that a lot of these bands, that was their whole purpose. And I remember I went to a church, and I have so much experience with this shit. Went to a church in Dallas called Deliverance Bible Church. A bass player from All, which is guys from the Descendants, a guy named Cletus was the pastor. And I remember him like wanting us to go to these different clubs and these different bands play, but we had to go there to minister. But of course we're kids, so we're like trying to go have fun, getting in the pit, doing circle pits and stage diving and head walking. And I remember him coming down on me about it, and coming down on a bunch of us about it, and saying, I don't even know why you want to be there. Well, shouldn't you just be home praying? I'm just like, this is
the last thing I want to do. I'm a kid.
I'm like 20 years old, barely caring about this stuff anymore. Yeah. And I'm just like, it was just so crazy to me. But like everything is a forgery. Everything is flim flam. It's a total scam. And it sucks because I would meet these bands as I started playing music. Half these dudes weren't Christians. The majority of these dudes weren't even Christians. Yeah. They would just like play the game to get on the label, and then they would blow up. and you playing like a quote secular band, and you get like 100 to 150 kids showing. Playing a Christian band, you're 1,000 people. Easy.
I have a comparison to make to that. I think not only does Christianity take the culture that they so heavily criticize, but they actually hide behind it, And I'll give you an example. I was in Florida one time. It was a couple of years ago, and I pulled into this parking lot. I was looking for a business or whatever, and I walked into his door, and I swear this place was like an insurance company or like some kind of real estate office. It was a church. It didn't even, there was no way to know that it was a church. I mean, they're at the point where they got to trick you, right? Like you go to these non-denominational churches and you have no idea what they even fucking believe. I mean, it's like, there's no real message. It's like, we'll just take a little bit from everywhere. And that's our story. So
they want to get people in. They should just turn them into casinos.
Well, yeah, and they could steal their money legally, I guess.
Jesus.
Instead of lying to them about it.
God's smiling on you,
right?
Yeah,
gentlemen, great conversation tonight. From Taylor Swift being criticized to Christianity stealing pop culture, we kind of covered a lot, and so I really had a lot of fun, folks. For you watching, if you want to see more of this fun that we like to have here on the Nonprofits, click the link below.